friends, this is Aubrey from Crybaby Sentimental Homestead, and I'm trying to find a spot in the shade for a project that requires sunshine as bright as possible. So I like to watch other YouTubers, and I think it's important when you have an idea, if you are inspired by somebody else, I think it's really important to do citations, give credit to where credit is due. So I was binge watching Robbie and Gary Gardening Easy with the intent of learning how to set up solar fountains in a way that it actually just keeps going and I don't have to keep running out with handfuls of ice or having to run out and keep filling it up. The kits are pretty self-explanatory once you get all the items, but they give you a lot more tubing than you need, a lot more attachments than you need. And then you have to figure out how are you going to, what containers are you going to use and so forth. So the setup that I did a while ago, I'll go ahead and put that here. That setup was actually really pretty and got a lot of my neighbors and people walking past, going to the bus stops and stuff, they were stopping to tell me how they loved it and they think it's great for the pollinators and hummingbirds, but they were like really pointing out the pollinators, which got me thinking too, if I poke holes, well, that container won't work because it's metal, it's gonna rust, and that's not safe for the birds. So I'm like, well, if I poke holes in the containers, then it's gonna be pretty, like the insects could go down into the reservoir and drown, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So I was inspired by Robbie and Gary, and then I did my own little twist on it. So you can kind of learn from my mistake of my first round through, which is I used a metal container which can rust. I used a metal container which if I poke holes through definitely is going to be rusty. If I use it the way it is, it's too shallow, it's going to be constantly renewed. You'll have to refresh the water constantly. I was constantly running out with handfuls of ice, which, if you have the day off, whatever, but it's not every day I go to work. So then I was thinking too, like, I want it to be dual purpose for the birds and the bees and the hummingbirds and all of that good stuff. So I wanted something that wasn't going to entice in the pollinators and then drown them. So I did a little bit different. Go ahead and watch my video through the end so you can see how it's different. I repurposed some containers that were a little bit bigger than what Robbie uses. So I might swap that out later, but right now I'm going to just test it out and see how it goes, watch and see what I repurposed. And I used a different solar fountain setup than the last one I used. So I was trying some different companies because I wanted to see, like, is one better than the other, or does it not matter? All right, so I really think that you should try your own creativity. Like, it's kind of like a puzzle. It's like, here are the pieces to the puzzle, but there's a couple pieces missing and you have to fill them in. I think it's really good for your brain and your creativity, the longevity of your your mind and everything, to try to problem solve and be creative as possible. And so I think I did something kind of cool. Watch and see. Let me know what you think. I can take some constructive criticism. I know it's not absolutely beautiful. It's much more functional than pretty, but I just grabbed three things from around my house that had other uses planned, but I was like, whatever I have, I'm not going to go to the store and buy anything. So for me, this was buy nothing. And if you were going to buy the items, it would cost you the price of a dessert. It would cost you $1.25. Was that just, and then the other item I actually got for free, because sometimes you go to fairs and stuff and there are all these vendors, banks and stuff, and they're handing out their free swag gifts. So it cost me a swag gift, a piece of plastic that was going to go into recycling from a dessert item, and then it cost me $1.25 for $1 tree item. All right, everybody, let's see what I did with this and tell me, would you do it differently? If you were doing one of these solar fountains, what items would you be using? And if there's anything you think I should tweak with this project, let me know in the comments. All right. I am retiring this little unit because even though it does work, it dries out just way too fast, and I can't sit and babysit it. I've had people stop and tell me how charming it is and everything, and I know that the birds and the bees have all been really enjoying this, but unless you have a constant, that reservoir is really what was missing from this unit. So I went ahead and did a new unit, which you're going to see right now. I have been watching Robbie and Gary Gardening Easy, and I love her hummingbird feeders. I placed that one metal tray out, and it is evaporating way too fast. So as I was watching her videos and she's improvising with all the materials, I thought, hey, I've got a lot of these I got from the Dollar Tree. I can't use the ones I poked holes on the sides for, so I had to use a new one. But then I went ahead and melted a little ledge on the side for the cord for the solar fountain. Okay, and this is the pump for the solar fountain, and I cut the plastic. I didn't use a straw, I just used the plastic tubing that came with it. Right, cut it just to the size. And then I was thinking, what should I use on the top? And I decided on a frisbee. And so I melted the hole in the middle so that the tubing can pass through it. And then one thing I did differently than Robbie is I made my holes super tiny. And the reason why I made them so tiny is because the organisms I've been seeing mostly use the other fountain have been pollinating insects, and so I don't want them to get sucked down. So I made all of the holes just as small as I possibly could, but I made tons of them so that if insects are trying to drink, they don't get sucked down into the reservoir underneath. I also did what she does, which is to like scallop the edges, and I did that with soldering iron. And I have an expensive, my soldering irons aren't as cheap as she describes. I get mine from Michael's. They're like $20, and I use them for arts and crafts besides just poking holes and things like that. So I made this kind of scallop so that the birds could hold on to the edge, the hummingbirds. And then I was thinking, what can I make for a bubbler? Because I don't want the water to go straight up. This is the piece that attaches to the tubing. And then I was thinking, which attachment should I use? And I don't think it really matters, but I'm going to use this little sprinkler setting. And then I'm going to put something else in between because I really do want the bubbler effect. I thought that was so nice. And then it gives them like a deeper drain, because this is going to drain out really fast. I'm hoping it will drain relatively fast so that there's like a continuous supply, like an actual fountain. So I decided, what do I have? I didn't want to use a K-cup. I do have those too. But I did find this Dairy Queen container. I always reuse containers. And I melted a hole. I'm not sure if this is too big. So we're going to experiment together and see. I haven't run this through yet, so we can see whether or not this was a flop or not. So I'm placing the sundae cup like that, and then I'm going to put the attachments together and place it on there. That was very simple. So this was already trying, the solar panel was already trying to run. So I'm gonna put it face down while I fill this up with water. This unit actually has one of the stakes, which is nice because I can place it out here in the sunshine. And then I have the unit I assembled right here. I decided to take this off because it wasn't tight enough on the piping. It kept floating off anyway. There we go. So I'm liking this. The only downside I think for the size of this is that this has to remain relatively full. But because the holes are so tiny, evaporation should not be a huge factor. Now I don't know if it's going to go anywhere and the birds splash around. If it's a small bird, probably not. And I didn't use glue or anything. The Frisbee fits inside just perfectly. It's like, because of how it's tapered, it really stays inside. And then the water doesn't seem to be overflowing because it is draining down. And then I could also add some ice in here too. That's good. You see it's still bubbling. And it's pretty full. Oops, there you go. And I'm going to keep my eyes out for a little smaller container, but I'm going to see if the birds and wildlife like this. And it's not leaving it so full that anything can drown in here. The idea is I want them to come and get a drink and not drown. So sometimes if you have water out, you'll find insects and stuff are just drawn to the water, and they don't realize how deep it is. And as the water drains, if the holes are big, they could get sucked down underneath. And since this was really drawing a lot of bees, I want to make sure that these are small enough that the insects don't go down. Let's see if this fills back up again. I'm curious because I'm watching this at the same time you are. Already I see. Well, I'm not really excited about the yellow jackets, but no. I don't want anything to suffer. I think it's really important that the pump doesn't run dry. What I mean by that is that it's trying to pump water through it and nothing's going through it. The other one was running dry because the container was only this deep. It didn't have a reservoir, so that gives me the whole reservoir. I repositioned the solar panels, and right away it's bubbling. It's definitely working. As I was assembling it, I kind of feel like some of the bees and yellow jackets knew what I was doing. I'm not kidding, because they were coming over to me and they were trying to get to the I want to say plate, but the Frisbee before it even had water in it. So I don't know. Like they say that dogs and bees can sense fear. I do wonder, can they sense that you're trying to give them water? Look at that. So I wouldn't have done this project if I hadn't watched Robbie on her channel. So this might morph and change over time, but I want to say God bless Robbie and Gary in their gardens. Thank you for sharing your clever ideas. And to my viewers, you don't have to do exactly what you see somebody else doing. Use your creativity and imagination and try adding your own flair to it. I love that about some of the people I watch on YouTube. And we're all inspired by something. I think it's important to give credit where credit is due. So thank you, Robbie, for being so clever and sharing your ideas. Well, what did you think about that? I don't want to say I'm clever, but I think I'm kind of clever with this. Maybe maybe there's some issue that's bigger that I can't see yet. But I will update you with edits to this project. If it's not working quite as well, whatever I have to tweak, I'll let you know later. And if I do, I will link any videos with follow-ups. I'll link them in the comment area below. So if you're watching this video and in the future, somebody watching this video a year or 2 years from now, I might have made several edits to this. So if I am editing, I'm going to post those updates in the comment areas over time. All right, everybody, God bless, live long and prosper. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and all that jazz.